Hello, I am Chuang. Let's draw a Galápagos tortoise, the world's largest turtle species. Some of its skin is very rough. Its stocky, elephant-like limbs also gives this animal another name, the elephant tortoise. Although its body structure looks different from that of the turtles we are familiar with, it still shares the same structure. It has 5 fingers and 5 toes, just like other turtles. Also, it has a bony shell that comprises 2 parts, the lower plastron and the upper carapace. When drawing, we can see that, unlike the very round, arched carapace of many turtles, the carapace of the Galápagos tortoise is relatively concave. Although the shape is somewhat different, the structure is still the same. Its carapace comprises 13 scutes, developed from the 5 spinal vertebrae in the middle, and 8 ribs on both lateral sides. These are the typical features of this animal. In addition, when drawing, we should pay attention to an apparent difference between it and other turtles. That is, it has a very long neck, a relatively small head, and stout columnar limbs. Now, let's get started. When composing the picture, we need to use dotted lines as the shape of its shell is quite complex. Let's first determine its rough location on the paper. Its head is about here, which is pretty small. We use a dotted line to outline a rectangle. It has a very long neck, quite similar to a dinosaur's. The dorsal side of the neck near the head bulges slightly upward, and this part of the neck is quite muscular. Draw the shape of its elongated neck, one of its distinctive features. Then comes its body. For the shell part, we can roughly consider it a rectangle when drafting. Then, there are its limbs. The limbs can be drawn like this, roughly in this position. Next, we can draw the visible parts, starting from its limbs. The elbow of the forelimb is facing outward and forward. Let's first outline the overall shape of its limbs. Draw its elbow, its forearm, and then its hand. Its name, the elephant tortoise, is inspired by its hands that resemble those of elephants. We can roughly summarize the hands into this shape. Then, we draw its digits. From this angle, we can generally see 4 digits. Those digits can be drawn like an elephant with somewhat long nails. It has a distinctive feature. The outside of its arms has several rows of large scales, like the woody seed scales of a pine cone. The scales are the largest at this position, and then gradually become smaller. The lower ones are larger, and those near the hands gradually become smaller. The same goes for this side, getting smaller and smaller as going upward. Its name is elephant tortoise, indicating that this animal has stout limbs with some wrinkles, similar to an elephant. Draw some wrinkles on the inside of the elbow, and then do the same on the wrist. Then, we come to the hind limbs. After pinpointing the hind limbs, let's draw its lower legs. Its thighs are inside the shell, so we only need to draw the lower legs. Then, draw this foot, which is round and has 4 thick and big toenails. We can draw some wrinkles on the foot. The hind limbs are absent of the many large scales like the forelimbs, so we don't need to draw them. Draw the foot on the other side. There are many rough wrinkles on its feet. Next, let's go back to draw its head. When drafting, we drew its head shaped like a square box. Now, let's first draw the top of its head into an arc like this. The front of its nose is somewhat square. It has a parrot beak, but instead of a sharp hook, only with a slightly downward pointed tip. The corner of the mouth can be drawn up to here. Then, there's its jaw. Draw some wrinkles at its mouth corner. Then, draw one eye above its mouth, a bit forward here. Its eyeballs are very large. The opening of the eye should look like this. When drawing, note that its eyes must be on the front half of the entire head. The eyes of turtles are like those of snakes, located pretty close to the front part of the head. If you draw them too far backward, they will not be lifelike. Turtles generally have large pupils, so draw this pupil very large. There are 2 tiny nostrils in the front of the mouth. Here, you can use very thin lines to draw where the keratinous beak meets the skin. Draw some large scales on the beak. Then, draw its eardrum very far behind the eye. Now, we come to its neck. The front half of its neck extends downward vertically, and then curves backward. The back half can be drawn into an S shape. This part of the back of the head should be drawn more bulging as many developed muscles are located here. Draw some very long folds at the base of the neck. It looks a lot like a dinosaur. Draw some folds at the throat. On the lower part of the neck, we can also draw a lot of wrinkles. On the linking part between the dorsal side of its neck and shell, draw a lot of wrinkles, making the skin here look very rough, like an elephant's. Next, let's draw its shell. Unlike other tortoises with a convex domed carapace, the Galápagos tortoise's carapace is somewhat concave downwards, or flat on top. The carapace is the challenging part of this drawing. Before drawing this part, we must understand its elements. Around the edge of the shell is a series of marginal skirts. Except for this skirt-like structure, its carapace body is composed of 13 skirts, which are the central 5 vertebral skirts, and 4 expanded pleural skirts on each lateral side. Once you figure this out, it's easy to understand the shape of its back. Let's use another piece of paper to show the structure. The oral description may not be clear. Its carapace is basically constructed of modified vertebral column and ribs. First, the central part comprises 5 spinal vertebrae. And then 4 ribs on each side extend around. These 8 scutes are from its ribs, with the spine in the middle. Then, large and small marginal scutes extend along the periphery. Therefore, if you want to know the entire structure of a carapace, you must understand what bones its scutes are developed from, so that you can further present it correctly. The carapace comprises 3 structures: the spine in the middle, 8 ribs on both sides, and other marginal plates surrounding it. All the turtle's carapaces follow the same structure. Now, let's draw the carapace of this Galápagos tortoise. We still use dotted lines to outline its shape. The upper part of its back can be slightly flat, and the edge of the dorsal side is here. Its abdomen also has a plastron composed of the ventral scutes. Then, its carapace. The carapace comprises 3 structures. The spine part is here. We first use a dotted line to draw it. Then, there is the rib part and the margin part. When drawing, it's important to clearly understand the structure, and then draft the different parts into defined shapes. We know this part has 4 ribs on each side, so we can divide it into 4 sections, and the middle section can be a little forward. Then, the spine comprises 5 scutes, with a central bulge atop each vertebra. After understanding this, we can effortlessly present the structure more clearly. Then, we can connect them with a honeycomb structure. Many extra lines can be seen on the draft that we composed with dotted lines. It doesn't matter because the shell has many patterns. We can cover these lines with patterns. On each plural scute, we can draw a line to divide it into 2 parts. The part along the edge is the marginal scute. Here, let's draw its tiny tail. It has a total of 8 ventral scutes, 4 pieces on each side. The first piece goes around its arm like this. Here is its arm. Then, the second piece, the third piece, and the fourth piece goes around the thigh. The scutes on the upper side can be further subdivided. The marginal scutes are not made of bones, generally following a rule like this. We can subdivide this part into several smaller pieces. Next, let's draw the texture of the shell. Basically, we follow the shape we just divided, and use thin lines to show the texture circle by circle like this. Assuming that the sun is shining from this side, we can emphasize the texture on the other side. There is no need to draw in the way of producing a regular diagram. We only need to sketch this circular stroke on the shadow area on the other side. Then, let's add more details. Its head sticks out from the front half of the shell. Then, let's refine the front half of the shell. Here is the top half of the shell, and here is the bottom half. Its thighs are covered inside the shell, and we can refine the edge lines. Good. Like this, we finished drawing this Galápagos tortoise.